Hi there, this is Helen Tarrant again from here with our whole team. Wow, it's massive. Welcome to another episode of Commercial Property Roadshow. You're here with Helen Tarrant. Today, I'm actually going to go through how to identify undervalued properties. This is actually going to be a series. We're actually going to take you through 3 different property types over the coming weeks to show you how to identify undervalued properties. But most importantly, what we do as a buyer's agent that tidies up the property to make sure there's equity in the property deal by the time you settle. And the reason I want to show you this is not always about being on the road. Of course, we've got someone else on the road and we've got a team out there scouring and sourcing and finding that particular property. But it is actually about sitting down, sifting through and working through how the deal works. A lot of that background stuff that puts us apart. You see, we have a particular skill set in our buyer's agency, and that is about tidying up properties that aren't neat and tidy, tidying up properties that's not quite right, identifying the monetary value in the property and doing small tweaks to the property deal. And that's about our client understanding exactly what we do and coming on board with us. You see, if you want to buy and get ahead of the game in this current hot market, there's 2 options for you. The number 1 option is that you buy a de-risk property just like everyone else, which means that you take a property that is neat and tidy with a 3 or 5 year lease with a tenant that's been established, and you take it at market yield, sometimes even lower than market yield. So that means if you're in Sydney, that could be somewhere around 4%. If you're in Melbourne, that's around 4%. If you're in Brisbane, anywhere from about 5.5, 5.8 to 6.25% yield. Now, if you're in regional, that may be somewhere that might increase to 7, 7.5%. But you see, that means you are a yield taker in that market. That means you're actually needing to wait at least minimum of 2 years before capital gains actually kicks in on that property in the long term. Or it may actually even be longer if the market goes sideways or we have an interest rate rise. So you are a yield taker, and basically you are with the hot market like everybody else buying a property that is de-risked. If you join us in our crusade, in our journey and in our challenge, and you join us and use our buyer's agency, we're out there to identify properties that are unique, properties that are high yield than market, property that can be set and forget that needs a bit of tweaking, and properties that are not quite right. So these might be properties with leases or month-to-month leases, properties that are undervalued in terms of it not being tidied up and neat, properties that are not quite right with co-space, sharing spaces, or with not properly partitioned and properly defined areas, properties that need any kind of structural fit out and uplift, and also properties that are just generally not loved and generally most of the market will reject. We often say, that it is actually properties that we pick up and run with and tweak that makes us the best, because we have a specialty skill set in our buyer's agency group that we're not only on the market scouting properties, we have behind the scenes people who can negotiate leases, people who understand how the pieces work in the commercial property deal to put it together. We have a construction team and a in-house building advisor who can look at a property in terms of a monetary cost. So you're not just getting a pest and building report when you get one done and it comes back and you go, okay, well, so the roof is leaking, need to replace the gutters, there's some waterproof issues, and there's some piers that needed reinforcing. Well, we actually look at it and go, okay, well, that may cost you $50,000, but maybe there's a cheaper alternative way of you to do it for $20,000. But you may be better off replacing an air conditioning unit for your tenant so they can get on a 3-year lease and increase the equity of that property. Because when the valuer comes through, they're not going to be looking at the footings of the property, they're going to be looking at the lease of the property. So we take those particular areas in your property deal and look at what will add value, and we tweak those. And that's what makes us fundamentally different. And that's what makes us also an expert in the industry, because I've seen so many deals. And now to really get ahead of the market, and everyone asks me this, if you were me, what would you do in this market? Well, my number 1 advice to you is if you are going to take a risk in this market, take a calculated risk and work with individuals who know what they're doing so that you can take a property that is not quite right, make it right during the process of doing the due diligence or shortly after. Then you've already got equity built in so that 12 months later, when you come to refinance that property is going to give you that return and cycle your deposit so much faster. Of course, if you're starting out in this journey and you're looking for something that is set and forget, we can absolutely source that property for you and find it for you. But just remember, with set and forget properties, there is a period in the market you have to hold, and you're buying the property at a premium because you want it to be set and forget because you are so busy. So that is the two options you have. You can go down neither path and you can choose either one, and we'll be there to support you. But here, I'm going to show you now on Zoom how to identify undervalued properties. So I'm going to show you an example that we've got a property currently under contract that we're fixing up, and that in the next 2 to 4 weeks, that will be a different property and how we're going to line that up. So this is the property that I'm seeing at the moment. So this is the property that's in Biggera Waters. So the Biggera Waters property, it's a property about, it's a warehouse property. So most warehouse properties are trending between 6 to 6.5% in the current market in Gold Coast. Now, this property is unique and it is 8% return, and you're wondering what is wrong with it. Well, the thing is, there is no substantial leases on it. There is a mortgage broker on the upstairs floor, which has a lease that's about to expire in 7 months' time. Downstairs, there is a gentleman's agreement, and they're in the middle of pretty much a 1 year, so-called 1 year lease about to expire. And we can see that what this property is I'll just read that for you as I bring it up. So I'll make that larger there, and so you get to see the property. So that's the property there on Brisbane Road and near Bunnings. So the location is really good, and you can see there's lots of little warehouses around here. It's definitely an industrial area. You can see it's 8% returning on Brisbane Road. You can see that the main thing is it's got an upstairs area, it's got a downstairs area, it's 273 square meters, so it's a good warehouse size. Downstairs is 2 cabinet makers. It's been there for the past 4 and 6 years. So the current owner is a cabinet maker, and he's fitted out for his own workshop, and when he left, he actually rented out to other cabinet makers, which is great because they can work out there. It's perfect setup for them, and they'll probably be there for years. The only problem is they're not on a substantial lease, and we have to put them on a substantial lease. So we basically then have the agent, and that's it. So that's about all the details you have on that property, and they've given you some comparisons over there, and that's it. So it's not much to see in terms of this property. And so the first thing we do is get on the phone and work out exactly what's the property deal is. And we then start to see if we can move the pieces around so that we can then make it a better deal for our client. So the number one thing that we do is we identify what is the history. So we now know that none of them are on leases, which is why it's 8% still on the market. No one wants this property. Remember, the market is looking for a de-risk property, and this is not quite right, but it is a higher yield. If we can line up the leases for our clients, then what we can do is get them, once already gone in, they're getting higher yield than the market. So this will probably sit, by the time we tidy up the leases, 1 to 1.5% yielding higher than the market, and that they've already got equity built into the deal. So I want to share with you some photos of this property. So I'm just going to do a reshare so you get to see it. There you go. So this is the property, and we can see that it's got the A-Team kitchens, it's got a kitchens and joinery. We've got upstairs, we can see that it's the mortgage brokers upstairs, so it's good to have signage. You've got any exposure and signage as well. So this is the workshop. You can see it from one side, you can see it's quite neat and tidy. The office space is good, it's neat. I mean, it's not a new warehouse, but it's definitely a warehouse that that is usable and functional and quite tidy as well. So we're going through these photos. This is just some of the equipment that's already installed in there. We've got the kitchen. It's not bad, but it definitely needs more work. And we've got the windowsill. We've got the roller doors is looking a little bit old, which maybe in the future you might want to replace. The joineries, again, that's quite neat. We've got downstairs this is some area beneath the stairs in terms of the storage space. We've got, again, more equipment. There's another equipment again. There's just information up there. We've got some roof. So this is to help identify if there's any roofing issues. If we can't see any leaks up there. So it's good. There's some skylights there. And some lights. The light seems fine. Carpentry area seems fine. Again, this is all workshop now. We're upstairs. We've got the office. Look, the carpet looks fine, but it's a little bit old. It's probably a little bit dated. Looks quite bright for coming through with the blinds down. So it's quite a bright, shiny, airy kind of office space, which is what we like. It's pretty much fitted out open plan. So if you were to have replaced that tenant, then, you know, someone else will come in and quite partition it or leave it open plan. You've got a kitchenette there, which is good. And it looks like they've got their own amenities in there as well, so which is great. Now upstairs we're looking at what's happened next door. You can see there's lots of those sheds around, and the roof is looking a little bit worn but not massively worn as well. So you're seeing a little bit of rust, but you're not seeing it rusted out. Of course, there's the stairways out to the exit at the front, so you've got dual occupancy but separated occupancy, so you don't have to disturb each other going in. So you've got 3A and 3B. And obviously there's this door of entry there as well. Look, the door probably needs to be replaced a little bit, but again, in the scope of things, is not huge. We've got the back area. Again, this is the roller door. We said it might need a replacing. It's also a little bit high, which means the trucks can back in, and obviously to unload as well. And we've got some stairs there as well. So that's pretty much that. And I'm just going to show you the video.
Yeah. Actually have cars with no number plate.
So that's just basically it, the video out there of the parking area.
What happened was
a bit of an argument.
Well, the body corporate said you got to move.
Yeah.
And so they probably milled the body corporate.
You do.
So Anthony, who's a lot of that chunk of it.
Yeah.
Called the police.
Yeah. So that's pretty much everything. So I'm going to stop sharing now. With the characteristics of this property, so what we are going to get with this property is, firstly, when we got it, the property itself had no substantial leases. It was yielding 8%. We went under contract at $565,000. We've had it now under contract for about 2 weeks. During that time, we've had a finance checked on it. So the banks have given us feedback on the property. We've gone back and renegotiated with the lease. And now we have 18 months lease with an 18-month option for both the cabinet makers downstairs, starting at settlement of this property. So it won't start now. It will start with the settlement of the property. In exchange, we've given them a 1 month free for each of them. And in that case, you now have the full benefit of the 18 months for the purchaser. Now, what we're doing now is in negotiations with the mortgage broker upstairs. What he has is he was on a 2 years by 1 year option. He has taken up the option. So now he actually has 7 months to go on a 3-year lease. So he's been there for quite some time. So what we are actually is proposing to do for him is offer him a 2-year lease with a 2-year lease with a 1 year option, just like his previous lease, but he'll have a full 2-year lease to start again at settlement. So when we've actually finished tidying this up, the purchaser will actually have a property with 2 tenants downstairs, reliable tenants. Remember, being a co-share, what I call a co-sharing space, being upstairs dual tenancy and downstairs, you'll actually, and 3 essential tenants, you actually end up having to have a gross lease where you have to pay all the outgoings. But ultimately, it's always about the net return. So at the end of it, we'll have 3 different leases, 2 carpentry leases downstairs, both 18 months, and a 2-year lease upstairs. So that's a much better option than we started with no leases. And even with a 2-year lease in this current market on the Gold Coast for a warehouse property, she can probably sell that at 7% or a little bit less, maybe a 6.75 in this market, especially because it is under 600,000, and that market is very hard to source a property for. So that alone in itself already built value into the property. The second bit to it is that we now have to go through all of the outgoings, which often is easy to miss outgoings when you have a property that you have multiple tenants in there. So here we're going to go through the rates notice, the sinking and admin fund, the insurance, the water rates, and as well as the electricity bill to see how it's properly divvied up. Obviously, it's probably not separate meters, but we want to make sure that, if we're going to go on managing it, it's equitably shared between everybody as well. So, and that how much is the net rent that we're going to get ultimately, because we went under contract at 8%, but by the time we work through all of those expenses, and often those common area expenses are forgotten, but by the time we work that out, we might be sitting somewhere around 7.75 or 7.8, which is still good, because what we've done in the lease is we will be building in the rental increases so that that's guaranteed as well. The idea of this is that she will have this property for 2 years. At the end of 2 years, or towards the end of 2 years, at 18 months mark, she will go back to the tenant and ask for a 2-year lease or 3-year lease, because they've now been there for 18 months. They will probably take up their option, or I'll tell them that they may have to vacate. So at that time, the market has changed. The rent has also gone up. One of the options to do is to give the tenant a 3-year lease or replace the tenant in the warehouse space, because there's so much demand for people leasing warehouses and small warehouse spaces that she can probably likely put a new tenant in there. And that means she'll have a new tenant downstairs at 3 years and another tenant upstairs that's potentially either going to give them a new 2-year lease or a new 3-year lease, because by then they would have been there for 5 years and they would know whether the business would need a 3-year lease. With the right type of incentives, upstairs could actually be going into a 3-year lease right now. But being a new client and also being someone that is a little bit worried about the cost, we would not negotiate a 3-year lease right now, because a 2-year lease, we might give them a 1 month rent free. If we're going to negotiate a 3-year lease, we'll have to offer a 3-month rent free, which is a lot when you're getting into commercial property and you're needing the cash flow. But in 2 years' time, when you've already got cash flow from this property, I would definitely be going back to the tenant and saying, on a 3-month rent free, would you sign a 3-year lease? And I believe that upstairs you'll get that, and downstairs you could match that up with another term. By then, the market would have compressed to at least 6%, and you would be able to get a significant capital gains. So at the moment, I will just share with you a little bit about what the rent is. So let me just share with you a little bit of the rent. So let me just go back to the Biggera Waters page and have a look at, here is the signed contract. Let me have a look at a disclosure statement. So I'll just reshare this for you. Here we go. So this is a disclosure statement, basically showing you, and we match up the disclosure statement with what's currently being paid in terms of body corporate to see whether it's gone up or gone down. This is the contract itself, just to show you that this is a contract that's been signed off by our client. And let's have a look at that. That's signed off by our client, and you can see that the purchase price of the property here is $565, 5% deposit. We've also got a list of shadows here: the air compressor, the duct extractor, the multi-board, all of that. So, and that's actually for the tenant to maintain. So that's one of the things we do check, and that's one of the things, especially with a co-working space like that, we want to make sure that the tenant actually are maintaining it. So we're going through this, and you can see that we've got the rent from the mortgage broker, which is about $18,000 upstairs, 444 plus GST. Okay, we've got a commencement date of the 16th, which is when I pull up that lease, they're actually on that last option. So I've got 12 months to go. And we know that the other tenants are paying $340 per week times 2. So that's about $680. And they're paying GST on top of that as well. So I'm just scrolling through the lease, scrolling through the contract. You can see 30 days from settlement. So, and that's pretty much the contract itself. And so I'll just work through some of the figures for you right now. So I'm going to put this on the whiteboard so that you get to see that as well. So stop share this. I will share a whiteboard. All right, so here's whiteboard. So I'm going to do text, and I am going to type out. So we've got current leases. So we have upstairs at 18,444. So this is all plus GST, but we just work it out at the moment because GST you can get that back, and of course it's gross outgoings. So we have 18,444. Downstairs we've got 340 times 2, so that's 680 times 52. That's 35,000. 35,360 total. So remember, these are gross leases. Plus 18,444, that's 53,804. So that's what it is now. Now we're going to minus outgoings. Now let me just check on my outgoings, what that is. Okay, so we've had some outgoings on this property. So the outgoings on this property is, firstly, we've got from the strata. We can find out, previously we've had the outgoings from the strata. We can find out that from the disclosure statement, which I've just shown you. So the outgoings are strata, and that works out to be, we've got admin and sinking. So admin fund is 1,002.15, and we have 1,803.86. We have rates at the moment, which is about 4,174. We have then, so we got some total outs. So our total out, there might be also some common area electricity, and stuff like that. We'll definitely check as well. But the rough idea of outs, so let's have a look at some common area electricity. Let's put out, so common area electricity, let's say that they're sharing bits and pieces, and let's say maintenance, let's put that down as, maybe, a few, $20-30 a week. So let's call it $1,000. So we're at total of, let's add it up. So let's add up what that is. Let's have a look. So let's add that up. So we have 1,002.15 plus 1,803.86 plus 4,174 plus $1,000 in terms of common area stuff that you have to shoulder, electricity, etc. So we're at 7,980.10. And just having a look at what else we've got. Oh yes, we need to add water in there as well. So I've got water in my list as well. Water, I've got, and again, this is where we want to look at getting the tenant to pay for things like that. So we've got water. We need to find out during our DD, which at the moment we're waiting on some water rates to come back to see if it's sewerage or whether the tenant is paying for the usage as well. So we need to add that in there as well. So we're already sitting at 7,980. So let's add in the 5,2. So we're at 9,500. 9,501. Now, one of the things that we do also during the outgoings is to make sure and check the leases to see that what the tenant pays and what you pay, and start tidying up those outgoings so there's more money into your pockets as well. So that from 53,804 is about 4. So the net rent, let me have a look at that. Let me move this forward up a bit so you can see. Net rent is 44,303.99. So that amount divided by 565, so at 565K it's 7.84%. So there's been some changes in strata. So when we got in the deal, it was 8% when we're based on the face of the property. Now it's at 7.84%. It's still a great deal because the market, remember, it's between 6.25, 6.5 if you're lucky. Once we tidy up the lease, and let's say we wait 12 months. So let's just say, let's put that in there. Let's do ticks. Yeah. In 12 months time, let's say we've got rental increase and they're all CPI. So upstairs is going to be, and remember, once we've tidied up the leases, the property is going to look a little bit different. So we've now got tenants in the leases. We've got tenant in the that has a rental increase. I would personally go back and I say renegotiate, but let's say that we've had a rental increase and we're getting the bank back. 1.02. So that's upstairs is 18,812. Downstairs is now the 35,360 times 1.02. So that's that's CPI increases 067.20. Now we're pretty much at 812. We're at total of 54,879.2. We minus out of that 9,500. Total net. We're at 45,379.20. So that as a 6.5. So let's just take that at 7%. That property is worth $648,000. That's where it's going to be in basically in 12 months time. In 12 months time, I wouldn't mind going back and having a rebash at it. If I could line up leases for 3x3, definitely I've just built in an extra $80,000-$90,000 in my in the purchase price, and I could recycle that deposit. Now, if I was at settlement, because I've tidied up the leases, instead of 8%, I can probably sell that property for just above 7.25, 7.3. So I could take that, so 44,303 at, let's say 7.25%. The yield on that, and how much would I bring in already in terms of equity? 44,303 divided by 7.25. The property is already worth 611,000. So for our client, who's paid $565 for that property, I've already given them, they essentially already have about $61,000 in equity gain. So 611,000. So they've got, sorry, my mistake, 46,000 in equity gain, just by purely tidying up the leases. So if you sell it back on the market, even straight away with those leases of 2 years, I've seen things in that area in 2 years, with 2-year leases going for 6% or 6.5% in that area. So for you, sell that property at 7.25, someone will buy that property instantly. So you could literally do a back-to-back settlement and gain yourself $46,000 in equity. So that's the process of making a not quite right property right, and in the meantime already picking up something in the back end. So that's equivalent to probably somewhere around an 8 to 9% growth in that property already, just in the 60 days that we've had it before settlement. So that is the power of taking a not quite right property and making it right. And ultimately, That's what we specialize in doing. So if you are looking for a personalized strategy regarding your commercial property, or you're looking at getting in the market and it's really hot and you have no idea how to get started, you don't know anything about structures, you don't know anything about loans, you don't know the right strategy for you, you don't know about leases, and you just don't know how to put a deal together, reach out to me at helentarrant.com or helen@commercialpropertycashflow.com.au, or simply just click the link below and book in for a strategy session with me. And I look forward to walking you through these kind of strategies and these kind of case studies so you fully understand how the property deal works for you in the future and how you're already gaining by the time you settle. And that's what we do every single day for our client, and I want to do the same with you as well. So click on the link below, join me at one of the strategy sessions so I can personalize the strategy for you, or reach out to me at helen@commercialpropertycashflow.com.au. Thank you. I look forward to seeing you on the next episode, where I'll take you through some more of our case studies. Bye for now.